Hello everybody, and thanks very much for all the support with all of my videos. I'm very grateful. Today I want to speak about the Residential Tenancies Board report about the increase in rents over the past year. Rents nationally now stand at €1,644 per month, and here in Dublin they're at €2,147 per month. Rents outside Dublin are increasing at huge levels. Many counties such as Donegal have seen double-digit increases, up to 13% increase in rents over the past year. We've also seen that in many other counties. Longford, Roscommon, nearly 20%. Limerick, 13 to 14%. Now this comes at the same time with a huge pressure being put on rental supply because of the immigration chaos, and also because of, we've seen that Donegal with the accommodation recognition payment that's been paid towards people who home Ukrainians, for instance, and which is providing more benefits for those who are looking for a more lucrative way to make money, rather than those properties being forced into the rental supply. Now this is creating huge issues, as I said, right across the country. And rents, as I said, are still increasing despite the rent pressure zones, because existing tenancies in Dublin rents have increased well over 6% in the last year. This comes at a time when there's supposed to be rent pressure zones. There's supposed to be limit on rent increases. And remember, this is on existing tenancies. It's not on new builds, which aren't subject to the rent pressure zones. They can come in at the market rents. If you leave a home empty for 2 years, you can still come in at the market rents. So there is ways to circumvent the legislation that's in place. But of course, we know there's no enforcement, or very little enforcement, in the Irish rental market. And much the same to what's happening behind me here, where over 502 apartments are going up. The vast majority are going to be on the private rental market. 10% are going to be subject to the Part 5 council social housing, and the rest will be out in the private rental market, making huge profits for the private equity companies and the very rich investors. Now it is also very important because over 12.5% of the rental stock are owned by landlords with over 100 properties. Now, and this demonstrates that the big move towards these institutional investors and international capital coming into Ireland to make huge profits off the misery of so many people. Because what they try and claim is that it's the small landlord, and all this sort of narrative is always pushed all the time in terms of the tax treatments. Because the tax treatment of these international investors and national investors is at negligible levels. Many pay next to no tax, but yet other landlords pay a higher percentage of tax, perhaps landlords that own one property. But this is also interesting because even those who own 50 plus properties are about 13 to 14%. So if you take those two together, 27% of the private rental stock in Ireland, 50 of those properties are owned, the vast majority, by very wealthy, high net worth individuals and national and international investors and vulture funds, making huge profits off the misery of ordinary people. Now, another point to note is that over the last couple of years they've been saying landlords have been fleeing the market. Well, the opposite is the case, because there's an increase in registered tenancies in the last year of over 8%. Now, this comes at a time where we face record house prices, and many landlords have sold in properties around Dublin, for instance, at record prices, but now we're relocating to other parts of the country that I mentioned earlier, such as Longford, Roscommon, Limerick, with double-digit rent increases, places like Donegal also as well, where you can make huge windfalls off the expense of ordinary people who are desperate for accommodation in Irish society. So this is how Ireland works. It works for the big vulture funds, the big institutional investors, and this is what Ireland is driving towards, to force people into longer-term insecure accommodation, paying extortionate rents as they head towards people get older and with an ageing population in Ireland as well. Notwithstanding the other crises we face, such as the immigration, which is putting pressure on to keep accommodation costs high, which is proven by the fact what's happened in Donegal with the big rent increases we've seen in the last year. And notwithstanding huge issues in the rental market and the housing market in Ireland, such as Airbnbs, which are just absolutely allowed to do whatever they want in our society, because this is the light touch, no touch regulation that takes place, no enforcement, and it would drive more and more people into more housing precarity and housing misery for years to come. And these institutional investors are the ones that will always profit, and this supply they're looking for, rather than serving the needs of ordinary people and putting the needs of our citizens first and providing a home as a basic good in society. So thanks for the support of my videos, really appreciate them, and please press subscribe. Take care. Slán.